Welcome to TSRA 2A Ricochet. Your host is Andy Turner, the Legislative Director podcast of the Texas State Rifle Association. We'll discuss your 2A rights, legislation, hunting, competition, you name it. Join in and be part of the discussion. Now here's your host, Andy Turner.
Welcome back to episode 3, TSRA 2A Ricochet, or 2A Ricochet, as you will find it wherever you find your favorite podcasts, on the TSRAPAC.com page, and also on the YouTube channel, TSRA PAC YouTube channel. There are emails that go out every time a new episode drops. So if you're not on my list, get on TSRAPAC.com and you can sign up for my emails. We would like for you to be a member of the Texas State Rifle Association very much. You do not have to be to get my emails. I will not sell your information, and I do not send out emails for no reason. I will send them when a new episode drops or when there is something I need you to do, like contact someone over something very specific. So very rarely do you get, once in a while you'll get the, hi, I need money. But that's what keeps the pack going. But you're not going to get, daily emails from me or emails that you're like, why am I reading this? Believe me, I get them too. So, but this
all I ever get is very important stuff from you. So.
Well, that's good. That's good. So episode 3, we're going to talk about mostly federal stuff at the moment. We wanted to talk about the New York Pistol Association's Rifle and Pistol Association's case that was before SCOTUS, and what we think will happen. And for those of you, many of you, I'm sure, are paying attention. Some of you may be like, yeah, I heard something about that. So I thought we'll go over this. And as you've heard in previous episodes, I am not native-born Texan. I actually escaped the People's Republic of Maryland. But I was the chairman of the state association up there, so I knew a good deal about where their gun laws are. And that's why I wanted to talk about New York. New York is, the basis of this case is, to decide whether or not the Second Amendment right to bear arms guarantees the Americans the right to carry arms outside the home for self-defense. That's the case. In simpler terms, New York, Maryland, and a couple of other states, I can't remember all of them, but I certainly know that New York and Maryland are two of them, are not shall issue states like the great state of Texas. They are may issue states. And you have to prove to them that you have a substantial need to carry. In the state of Maryland, I had written proof that I was being stalked and threatened if I was working for a state agency, and if such and such doesn't happen, and so I had written proof. I filed a report with the police, and I called my friend who was the legislative director for the issuing agency, which I won't disclose because he'll kill me. But we're very good friends. We're very, very good friends. We understand what legislative directors do. So, and I said to him, hey, so now do I get, my license to carry? There it's called a CCW, concealed carry weapons permit. Here it's called an LTC or CHL, depending on how long you've had your right to carry card. And he said, were you injured? And I went, well, no. And he said, okay, so you have to be injured and you have to be under continued threat of injury.
Oh my goodness. In
order to qualify for a temporary CCW, LTC, CHL, whatever you want to call it. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. I didn't realize that they had, closed it up that much. But wow. Yeah, that's exactly what they'd done. And I was working in Baltimore City and parking, not in a good area because there wasn't a big parking lot for us. So if you weren't with the agency for like 15 years, you didn't get on the parking lot. So, it was, I was looking over my shoulder quite a bit and, friends of mine, and you can't carry in Baltimore City anyway. Don't even get me started. Getting back to New York, they are also a may issue state. So the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association has sued. It has worked its way up to the courts. If you would care to listen, you can't see it, but if you would care to listen to the court case or read the transcript, email me at anditurner@tsra.com, ANDITURNER@tsra.com, and I will be happy to send you those links. Also, keep that email. If you've got questions, comments, doesn't matter if we've covered it on the show, if you've got ideas for the show, hit me up. Because Eric and I are always looking for something. So, the prior precedent for this case is, of course, Heller. In 2008, the Supreme Court held in a 5-4 vote that the Second Amendment does protect an individual right to keep and bear arms in their home, in their residence. And this got revisited in McDonald in 2010, but basically, so now we've got, as it stands now, yes, you can own a gun for self-protection in your home. What happens after you step out the front door? Well, we know what happens in Texas. However, we all have friends and family. They may not all be Texans. They may not all have the good sense to move to Texas and learn to be Texan. So, we want to look out for our, brothers and sisters across the country. But this has the potential to be a history-making case and settle a lot of stuff. And I know, Eric, you're going to talk about what possible outcomes there are in a hot second. You know that the composition of the court, yes, generally speaking, people who follow the Second Amendment and things that are going on are optimistic. If they've been listening, did you have time to listen?
No.
To the thing? Okay.
No.
I know we talked about it, and I know that you've read a good deal about it. But I mean, Justice Breyer, Justice Sotomayor, and Justice Kagan are considered no votes. I mean, they're known liberal judges, but now we've got 5 other justices to deal with. Actually 6. 6, I think. But anyway, Kavanaugh and Barrett have supported the right to keep and bear arms in the past, but we've seen with other justices in the past that when it comes down to now I'm a SCOTUS judge, we'll have to wait and make sure they do what we hope they will do. So yeah, we think they're with us. Hang on though, because anything can happen at SCOTUS, and usually does.
Yes.
So Justice Gorsuch showed himself to be a little bit unpredictable when he wrote the opinion Bostick versus Clayton County. He found that this Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination because of sexual orientation, and I mean, I don't know. Discrimination is discrimination. So he could go either way. Justice Thomas, of course, he's going to be the swing vote. I mean, he's going to be a tough nut to crack. He has spoken strongly about the right to keep and bear arms, but when he wrote the opinion for U.S. versus Bean, I'm using my notes here so I get it accurate, he held that a Mexican conviction for accidentally bringing ammo into the country counts as a felony and causes someone to lose their gun rights in the U.S. And 2, no one can seek restoration of their gun rights through ATF or the federal courts through a specific statute still on the books because Congress denies funding for that to ATF. So we all know Justice Thomas could go either way. I mean, we hope, we pray. We'll find out in June. I know you have some notes on Justice Roberts, and then I'd like to hear from you about what you think. What you think? We talked about this before the show. I think we're in agreement. But go.
Yeah. Well, like you said, his vote is going to be kind of a swing vote, so we'll see what he ends up doing. Justice Roberts, of course, he's nobody really knows what he's going to do either. He's gone both ways in the past, and even on the Commerce Clause adopting the Obamacare requirement for the purchase of health care, he found that the opinion was that it was a tax. And so,
and that's how it got through. Because I remember watching the news, and they were on the front steps of SCOTUS, and they were literally going through the opinion a page at a time. And I was watching Fox at the time, and she was almost giddy because they rejected and rejected and rejected, and she was like, they rejected it. And then she got to the bottom of the stack and realized it's tax, and it got upheld. And I don't know who was more deflated at that moment, she or me.
Yeah, so. I mean, literally nobody thought it was a tax. So,
right.
But let's see. National Federation of Independent Business versus Civilis. I think that's how you say that.
That sounds right.
Roberts has shown himself to be concerned about his image with the press and liberals.
Yeah.
He may be afraid of the backlash.
NFIB is a large organization, and they represent independent businesses. Do you recall what that case was?
I do not off the top of my head.
It's not in there.
What was that again?
National Federation of Independent Businesses versus Civilis. Or
yes.
Civius, I don't know which. Does it say? Okay, I may have forgotten that. We kind of swap notes as we do this, so please forgive us. But anyway, but we all know, anybody that's been paying attention to SCOTUS at all on any issue knows that John Roberts could go
either way.
Any way, up, down, north, south, east, west. So we'll just have to see. So what do you think is going to happen?
Well, of course, there's a couple of possibilities. Hopefully, we'll get a moderate victory. We'll find that the Second Amendment protects the right to bear arms outside of your home, which, I mean, that's what our founding fathers
had in mind.
We are supposed to be able to, and it's not something that's given to you by the government. It is a God-given right to protect yourself. So
that's true.
Why shouldn't you be able to take care of yourself on the street, not just behind closed doors in your home?
That's right.
So hopefully that's what we'll be looking at. They'll find that infringing on the rights, is unconstitutional, that we're going to get the ability to have full constitutionality with our Second Amendment rights. So
in that case, it would be a total win,
yes.
Right? So that would be, and if you listen to, and I did, if you listen to the court arguments, stuff like that, I mean, it was really kind of, I was listening to New York and of course the feds, and I was really kind of surprised at how underprepared, and I was very underwhelmed by their presentation. And not because I'm pro two-way all the way. I actually have an interest in listening to how people argue. This is why I've said on a number of episodes, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, I'm fine with that. Send me an email. Let's have a conversation. How do I learn?
Exactly.
If we can't have a conversation where we disagree and exchange ideas, we're a hot mess.
That's right.
That's right. I enjoy watching SCOTUS. I just do. I think it's a fascinating thing. But I enjoy it mostly when it's two-way related. Yes.
And they've had several cases over the last 2 or 3 years that they didn't even really want to hear.
Right.
So hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know several states. I have friends that are involved in some cases that were denied cert by SCOTUS, which was unfortunate. But, there is a standard. They don't just draw names out of a hat and go, oh, we're going to hear this one. And sometimes they only will very narrowly, I mean, they decide like, okay, we've got a case and it's this big and, the lower courts are fine. But then when we got here, okay, we want to hear about this.
Right.
This. None of that, just this. So they can decide which part of a case that they may have some concerns about, or that they just think there should be this, there should be this debate about. So it's an interesting process. And getting cert is in front of SCOTUS. It also has a bunch of requirements And then also, do they want to entertain this discussion? Do they think this is a discussion that needs to be had at this time? And, sometimes I've been disappointed and going, are you kidding me? Of course this needs to be discussed. But until you walk a mile in a man's shoes or a woman's shoes. So,
well, hopefully they won't dodge the question altogether.
That's the worst case situation, right?
Yes. And then, of course, we have total defeat, which would be least likely.
Okay. And what would total defeat look like?
If they refuse to recognize the meaningful right to bear arms, and they allow laws that infringe, if they have a rational basis or applies intermediate scrutiny. So the end result would be that the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms is no stronger after this ruling.
If under that scenario.
Under that scenario.
So there's a number of scenarios between a total win and a total defeat. But really what I got from listening to this case and from talking to people who know things and you and I talking and kind of putting this together is anything short of total defeat is something of a win for us. It may not be the big win, but we'll win somewhere.
One step forward is always better than 2 steps back.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I don't expect to hear about this until the end of this session. And of course we will be absolutely talking about this when it happens. And cause there'll be lots of fodder, but with the unpredictability of some of the judges and, there's at least 4 or 5 different ways they could find this case. So, and we could get into all the really fine minutia of this, but I'm thinking that's enough for now. If you want us to get into the minutia, you know how to reach me. Moving on. You had some other federal stuff you want to talk about.
Yeah, so we were, last episode, we touched on a little bit about red flag laws and what those would mean. Of course, we have the red flag laws known as HR 4350, which would be the National Defense Authorization Act,
which we talked about, and that's supposed to go back to committee.
Yes,
to pull out the red flag law for active military.
And of course, if you're not familiar with this, that is a bill that would allow a military court to issue a protective order, which would make the owning of a firearm by an ex-military member illegal. It's a 1,300-page bill. I don't know how they get so many words into these things. But the military court protective order issued could even be on an emergency basis, which would exempt them from providing the recipient with the standard right to due process. So instead...
Is this for citizens or military?
This is just for military.
So this is the NDAA?
Yes.
Which we talked about?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And...
so we should be... okay. Hopefully.
And so by refusing them the right to due process, instead they basically get a notice and an opportunity to be heard after
they come in
to your door.
Same as they'd like to do with standard citizens. And yes. I know there's another bill. You talked to me about another bill where they're trying to do that for all Americans federally. Can you see if that went to markup? So we talked about this in the last episode. If this is your first episode, when you are dealing with federal legislation, a bill gets dropped, just like in Austin, you can drop a bill on any subject for any reason. If the bill is being taken seriously, the first step in DC is for it to go to what's called markup, where they evaluate the costs and what's required and this and that and the other thing. If it doesn't go to markup, it is never scheduled for a committee hearing. So somebody might, and why would somebody drop a bill that they know is never going to go to markup? Because they can campaign and say, I said we should have a mandatory confiscation of all guns. I dropped that bill. It was this number. You can go look it up. But they don't tell you that it didn't get a hearing. It didn't go to markup. It's, it's like, okay, well, rock on you. I know the NDAA was filed in August. The previous bill that he was talking about, that Eric was talking about, was filed in August. And to our knowledge, and I know he's checking the congressional site, it has not been. As of
right now, it hasn't been marked up.
So neither bill.
But, for the...
NDAA has not been sent to markup yet.
And HR 2377 has not yet.
When did that drop?
It says April 8th, 2021.
Excellent.
Has 114 co-sponsors, all Democrats.
Of course.
But basically, like what we were talking about, grants any family member, roommates, former household members, law enforcement, anybody that you know will be able to petition the court and submit an affidavit accusing the respondent of posing a risk of imminent personal injury to himself, herself.
They're afraid.
Individual.
They're afraid. They're afraid you're going to hurt them because you own guns and you painted your fence the wrong way, or you had an argument over the football game. And I don't mean like you punched them in the mouth. I mean, you were leaning over the fence arguing the value of the Houston Oilers. The Houston Oilers, not the Houston Oilers. The
Houston Texans.
The Texans.
The Oilers are now...
Right. Sorry. The Texans and, and the Cowboys. You guys got into an argument. You own guns and, they go to... And judges, I know a lot of judges. Most of them are extremely reasonable people, but we read all the time I should say online. I was going to say in the papers, but I don't get a paper. But we read all the time on the internet about, judges who do some very strange things. So to open this door, but I didn't know that bill was filed in April. Yeah. So the congressional session is coming to an end with the end of this year. So as we get closer to Christmas, we get better Christmas presents.
Yes.
So that's good news.
We just got to really watch it and hope that it doesn't, gain any traction. I think the really scary part is, even though we do have Second Amendment sanctuary here in Texas now, bills like this, they can come in. Of course, Texas has already said with the Second Amendment sanctuary bill that we will not provide any assistance to federal agents.
Right.
They will have to bring their own equipment.
Right. I totally forgot that in the last episode. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. So, yeah. If it's not already Texas state law and the feds passed a new law,
if they want to come to your door,
right? The feds have to do it.
If the feds want to come to your door, they're not going to be able to call Texas and say, "Hey, we need your help. We need your equipment. We need your station."
Right.
We're going to be like, "You want to do this? You got to bring all your."
So the Rangers are not showing up at your door. Your county sheriff is not showing up at your door. They can't take you to the county jail. They have to take you to a federal facility, which they can do. There are a couple federal facilities.
Yes.
And
I do believe
I blew that on the last episode like that. That's a huge
thing.
thing.
I do believe that we also passed it into the Second Amendment sanctuary bill that any officers, any state police that participate in helping federal agents can be fined.
Right. And they wouldn't be, I don't think it's the individual. I think they lose state funding. Okay. The department, if I remember this correctly, they lose state funding. And a lot of these agencies depend on that state funding. So because there's, because of the financial structure and the taxing situation in Texas, yay, they depend on those state funds to exist. So, listen, I feel like, our local sheriff here who is fabulous. I feel like he's got enough to do without worrying about some fancy new law. I feel like if I walked up to him and said, Sheriff, you good with this? He'd be like, I got enough to do. So without all this nonsense. So
we do have a little bit of shielding being here in Texas.
Yes.
And that is a blessing for sure. But we do have to keep our eye on the feds.
Yep.
They're always trying to get more power.
Yep. So, but I think it is. I think it is important, and I to recognize that bill was filed, as you said, in April, and here we are. Well, we're taping this in November, so you'll probably be seeing this in December because Thanksgiving and this, that, and the other thing. So hopefully we won't have to get back together and, oh my God, this went through. But I if they haven't scheduled it for markup, Biden's numbers, have you been reading about Biden's polling numbers?
Just all-time low, historic lows.
I read today, I should have printed it out. I read today that a guy that served with him, whose name escapes me, it's been a long day, who served with him in the Senate, thinks that he may not run again, which leaves Kamala Harris. But her numbers are not good either.
Right.
So, because the economy is, it's a hot mess.
I mean, unless we have a fiasco like we did in 2020, I don't see that the Democrats have a whole lot of leg to stand on, especially with the gas prices going up, the shipping issues,
supply chain issues.
Yes.
The thing is,
the economy's in the.
Yeah, we'll have congressional races next fall. It is for many of those races a lifetime until next November. And then 2 years after that, I mean, you're literally talking about 3 lifetimes because people, not our memories, but the general public's memories, something that's going on now, if it's fixed a year before they go to run, their memories are short. And
I have found that to be very true.
So, we'll see. But I'll keep you all up to date, and we will, TSRA will be making endorsements in state races. And when those come out, of course, yes, I will send an email and you will be able to find them on the PAC website. And, when I share them with Eric, if he has comments or whatever, things he wants to share, we might just do a podcast on that. We'll get there when we get there. But right now, I'm still waiting on surveys to come in. And to see what we're doing. So, there will absolutely be grades coming from the Texas State Rifle Association on each and every candidate. I was sad to hear, and again, we're taping in November, so if you're not seeing this till December, it's old news, so I apologize, but it made me sad. Representative Syrier is running again. So
yeah, I heard something about they got a new candidate that's going to take his.
There's 2. So, I
had just briefly heard somebody mention that the other day. I hadn't had a chance.
Yeah, John was from the minute John Syrier and then my friend Diana. From the minute I put my feet on Texas soil as a resident, those 2 just welcomed me in, and Diana spent a long time teaching me the Texan way, and I haven't got it all straight. I'm learning, and I'm happy to learn more. Don't anybody yell at me. But and John, what can I do? This, that, and the other thing. I campaigned for him. I was happy to campaign for him.
He's one of the few that actually respond to you when you email.
Yeah, he's a good guy. There's a number of people who have decided not to run again, but for me, with Representative Syrier, it was a little bit personal because literally my first contact here was with Diana, who is now executive director for the Texas State Rifle Association, and then in turn John Syrier, and he was a quiet but very well thought out legislator, and I don't think you can. I don't care if you're quiet or loud, but well thought out. You can't get enough of those.
Exactly.
So anyway, so that concludes episode 3. We would like to wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Festivus.
For the rest of us.
Yes, and I'm sure there's a holiday I'm missing. I've forgotten what it is.
There's Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Happy that, and also Happy New Year. We will be back after the new year, and we will see you then. In the meantime, if you need me, Andi Turner at tsra.com, ANDITURNER at tsra.com, or you can find me. You can also find me at tsrapack.com if you lose my email address. And we'll see you in 2022. Bye, guys.
Thanks for stopping by.
You've been listening to TSRA 2A Ricochet with your host, Andi Turner, the Legislative Director Podcast of the Texas State Rifle Association. And until next time, you can find out more at tsrapac.com and tsra.com.